tonight for the opportunity to come before you, Lord, in the water board and sanitation board, Lord Jesus. And we just lift you up and give you all the praise and glory for what you're doing in Martin County. And Lord, we just pray your wisdom over this meeting tonight, dear God. And we pray a hedge of protection around our utility workers. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to call the Martin County Water District special board meeting to order. This meeting is in lieu of the regular meeting. So with that, board members, you received your packets and reviewed the meeting minutes. Is there any issues or discussions on the meeting minutes? And if not, have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The review and consideration of financial reports. Treasurer's report.
The faculty meet tonight.
Okay.
So looking at page 4A1, you can all stop me if there's anything else you want to go into detail on as I go through this, but the construction work in progress is sitting at $1,700,947. The meter project is already intake. The that's all work that's included in that number. Your net property, plant, equipment totaling $18,550,070.96. Total assets there then sitting at $20,688,598.26. Looking over then at 4A2, your liability and equity. Payable does include the anticipated overage to Alliance. I know that's been a question and issue in the past, but that amount is included in that accounts payable, which is currently sitting at $632,134.44, making your total current liabilities $896,406.99. Your long-term debt is $4,080,556.71, and then you see the total liability and equity does balance out against the assets. Moving on to 4A3. Revenues were down a little bit in the month of November. We were $19,927 under budget for revenue. I'll call
motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Motion. I make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, review consideration to approve other financials.
So is there anything that you all talked about in the bank recs? Still, let me know if you have any questions, but otherwise,
Well, I do have a question on, where did I see it? It was under utilities, and I thought there was a negative value of $308,000. I'm just trying to find where it was. Let's see. Okay, go ahead. This will be Bill's.
so on 4B3, the vendor balance, this looks a little bit different than what you're used to seeing also. And I think that this way is better. I hope that you all agree, but previously we were excluding other vendors. We were only showing the amount due to the lines. But I think that, again, I think this is better to show the amount due to all vendors. And in fact, we even looked at the different options today to perhaps in future financials show more.
Yeah, so the part I'm struggling with is, and this is good, but what I need to know is what's the accounts that are paying these and what's the what we're doing is you look at the bill is fine. You know what I mean? You know, okay, we gotta pay the electric bill to keep the lights on, we gotta pay cables to keep operation, we gotta pay this, if you're going down to selectively picking who you pay. And so, and I understand that, but that's the other reason why I wanna have a workshop. Because I want this to turn and morph into more about showing what we can afford to pay and what we can't afford to pay. Because when the board approves to pay bills, we're approving to pay the bills, but what we don't see is what we're approving is not being paid. And that makes no sense to me. What I really need to know is, okay, the board approved to pay these bills, so we're paying these, and these we're not. And we need to know that. Now, in the next board packet we get, we see the result of that, because it goes into A's accounts and we see what's shaking out. But, you know, it'd be nice to know, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, which, you know, we ahead of ourselves, we wanna talk about the financial workshop, but I think it would be helpful to see kind of like account balances from, I don't know how many accounts we have now and what is forecast to be coming out of those. So we know if there's money in there to approve or not. I've never really felt comfortable, you know, approving $200,000 worth of bills when I know we don't have enough money in the bank to cover that.
Right.
And so, but at least if there was more clear path of like, you know, are these listed on 5-1 in the order of priority? Like, do we pay AP first, and we say RSD second? Like, or is this just an arbitrary list?
It's not arbitrary, I know that much. And I will say that as far as just looking at this vendor list today, right now, the only three that have not been paid are going to be Alliance, Stites and Harbison, and Kincaid. Those are the three that have not been paid to date.
On this list.
That's 4B3.
4B3, correct?
So that's,
This is everything included from list of bills for today as well.
Yes.
for today as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, but I just heard everything's gonna be, that's on this, everything is scheduled to be paid except for 3, that's what I heard. Okay.
And I think for the most part, this hasn't been an issue for the past year, but it is becoming an issue now.
Because of legal bills. the board to settle or to get the construction easement in place. So there's two things going on here, and under Brian's contract, it's a conflict of interest for him to represent two parties at the same time. He's asking that to be waived. So I'm asking the board to approve, to waive that so he can work for both parties to get this resolved. Because without the airship being resolved, we'll never get the construction easement to begin with. So, without a second, individual basis, good point. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you.
The next item, property purchase for RWY emergency generator. Brian didn't provide me with.
No, and that's on hold currently because we're waiting on FEMA to give us a POP extension of the emergency generator grant. And until we get that POP extension, we've been told by FEMA to stop until we receive that. So once we get the POP extension, it will impact all that, but we can't do it currently.
The next item is auto ground project AML letter update, and they provided us with a letter on December 9, 2025, which I forwarded on.
Yep. We received that, all parties in question, which would be Big City Ad, along with the engineer of record, Bell Engineering, are in receipt of that letter. Bell Engineering has revised the spec book accordingly to align with that letter. It's important to note what that letter does is it recognizes Martin County Water District as the owner. It also recognizes Martin County Water District as signatory to the contracts, which from a legal perspective is prudent for us to move forward with the auto ground project. So once I'm in receipt of the revised spec book and reviewed it, at that time, this board has already approved for me to sign that permit upon these things happening. So that's where we sit on that particular one.
The next item is legal review of the update.
That was the update.
The update was non-information.
But I think it's time that we give them something that has their teeth in it.
I agree, Tim. As a matter of fact, it annoyed me that they provided an email to Alliance that I thought was misleading. That is why immediately when I saw it, I passed along the email, the message that he had sent to me to clear it up for you all.
Yeah.
Because it was non-information, and he was clearly just providing a smoke screen or whatever you want to call it to Alliance.
Yes, I call it an appeasement letter. Yeah. Okay. All right, well, let's do our due diligence and go back to them with facts and push them on that. Okay. Because this board's already approved, for AWR to take the funds that we've received and do the repairs that are budgeted. And to stay within that budget. This board's already approved that. And I'll be anxious to hear when we get to that piece, what we're doing and timeline for that. Okay. All right, operations.
781
We've been insulating our pump stations. We got heaters going in all of our pump stations, insulating all of our transition lines at the tank sites because they freeze up and you can't tell what tank level you've had and this and that. So all these different things that we saw last year, we were working on last year, but we've, made better improvements this year, so we're hoping to see a big difference this winter. We did have a portable generator on standby this past weekend, just in
saw a video of, Kennedy, RFK Jr., and he was talking about the trade-off. They have proof that IQ drops because of fluoride.
Like a lot of things, that chemical need and what was necessary in a period of time where it needed to be in drinking water to satisfy the health need. But that time has come and gone. It's been time gone, that time has come and gone since probably the seventies, eighties. And here we are 40 years later and we're still talking about it. That's why I'm always opposed to the statement, well, we've always done it that way. That's like, that statement makes no sense to me.
I think everyone's I feel better.
Yeah, I know, I feel the same way.
Forward, right?
But with, back to the chemical discussion, this is through October,
We'll take that out.
but my question is, do we have enough chemical on hand now to finish out the year, or are we gonna spend more money, and are we gonna see this exceeds go higher than what it is now?
I mean, it'll definitely go a little bit higher, but we're on a trend of, not an extraordinary amount going through. I don't have an exact number of a,
So I mean, this is December 16th, right? So we only got 2 weeks left in the year.
yeah, I'm sure we've got enough chemical to last us through the end of the year. I just don't know what'll hit. I would have to go back and pull all that, what would hit November and December.
As far as financials, you're saying not because of
Yeah, for financial wise. Yeah, as far as chemical goes, it being the holidays, our guys will have everything they need, going into the first of the year, because it's hard to, around holidays, it's kind of hard to, you gotta plan for at least a couple of weeks into January.
I'm just trying
I
to
can track that down and let you know.
I'm just trying to get a feel for how much the overage is gonna be. That's gonna be a
I don't
check.
know as I've approved invoices coming through, but it's not been, an extraordinary amount. I don't have that exact, figure in front of me, but I can get it to help forecast it.
So when we go back and look at the financials, the status of revenues and expenses, which is a month ahead of this information, so this is through November, is forecasting the chemical overage to be $52,911. Now, that is also an assumption that we're gonna spend the budgeted amount next month, which we're not going to, so I would expect it to be less than that amount.
Less than 52,000.
Yes.
Okay. And we're over on repairs as well, so if you sum those two together, the repairs and chemicals go together, that's the check together, right?
That's true. I wouldn't think it would be over maybe around 60 altogether.
That's why I'm really curious, and that's why I really want to know how much money is going back into from FEMA that pays back for our maintenance costs, the repairs we did, because that's gonna offset this check. And that's why we want to know that information. Okay. All right.
Okay, 787, 788, your monthly transactions that hit those accounts. Next will be your MOR. Nothing to make note of there, any violations, everything at the plant, is doing
Just
everything.
one question I have, Cody. We have 2 trailers, right? 2 trailers in our fleet that we pull equipment with.
That's correct, yeah.
Because last month I see tire purchase for a trailer. This month I'm seeing tire purchase for a trailer.
Yeah, one, we bought a new axle and tires for the trailer that we use on the
Sanitation
sanitation
side,
side.
that's in the sanitation report.
This is just tires, yes, for the trailer on the water side, 2 tires.
But I also seen last month we bought tires. And so it begs the question, are the trailers we using the right size trailers for what we're hauling? And because I'm just looking at these expenses, because on the sanitation side, I want to say it was like $1,200-1,300 if I remember right. But I'm just, I'm seeing these hits, and I already know that we're over our maintenance budget. And that's what's jumping out at me. But we'll get into further discussions around that when we get into talk about expenses. So I think we need to put some limits on when we're at budget, there needs to be something to where we can't spend money unless the board approves that money to be spent. Because you just can't go and spend money if you don't have a budget to spend it against. that we operate within our budget. And the only time you can't go outside that budget is if this board approves it. And the board has to approve a certain dollar amount to go outside that budget for. You can't just, we approve a budget, we operate within the budget. You can't go outside the budget. But we have it, we do overages, right? But I'd like to know if we're gonna go over, what are we gonna go over, and what's the forecast of going over, and at the end of the year, what does that mean? And we should be able to tell us that up front, not after the fact, right?
Well, so we've added to the financials now, and so that's, that forecast is sitting at about 70,000, but I do expect that to drop.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
16 and 17 are those, haloacidic acid and dry methane, numbers. Our averages are well within the range here. I know this has been an issue of the past, but I don't think it's been an issue in a while. But we got me going to include those each time I get them. So there it is, and we've got, good average going for us. 7C, our water loss report, sitting at 51.58% through, and that's for November. 7C1 is our leak map throughout the county of all the leaks that we fixed in November. 7D1 through 73 are our leak adjustments.
All right, so let's just stop there for a second. So we're sitting at 51.6% roughly on our water loss, which is close to what it was last month. I think last month we were right around the same number. So with that, board members, you had a chance to look at the leak adjustment request. And if so, can I get a motion to approve those leak adjustments?
I'll make a motion. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right. Now, one thing important to point out on the MORs, and something I didn't pay particular attention to, is turbidity coming out of the filters. Since we serviced all of our filters, if one thing that's noticeable is our turbidities are down and staying down. That's also having good filters is one thing, but also having a good collection system and clarifiers is another. But we've got all that repaired, we've got the media, the anthracite replaced. And where that helps you is when you replace your anthracite, that helps remove organics from the water. When you remove more organics from the water, when you disinfect, you have less disinfection byproducts formed because you gotta have organics and other things to form those byproducts. Those filters, well, 3, 4, 5, and 6 haven't been changed in years. But now we're gonna get them on a maintenance cycle. That's why I'm so interested in S4's report. And I expect it to say between 3 and 5 years based on water quality influent data. That's what I would expect to see. But to service those filters along that timeline, we have to plan for that because it's expensive. 4 filters cost $64,000, and that's not repairing anything. That's just replacing the media. Okay. All right. So with that, let's talk capital projects. I'll get my sheet out here to help me. We've currently got the countywide meter change outs. We're still waiting on parts for 2 meters, the commercial meters.
Here in
February. And then we've also ordered the master meters.
Yeah, that's February.
February as well. And then one of the things I asked AWR to do was put together a forecast on the budget. Because at the time that we looked at that, we were minus 600,000, but we were under budget 600,000 at the time. And I said, okay, AWR, take a look at that and come back to this board with a forecast on doing these things, how much you're going to spend, and where is that going to leave us? let's just make sure we keep working that, because this grant has a time limit, right? And we don't wanna get into a period of performance issue. And the time limit on that is September the 24th, 2026. That's when that expires, that's why I'm pushing this discussion. Okay, turkey tank rehab, everybody knows that, that project, is on hold for construction easement. The period of performance on that project is, October 15th, 2026, so it's important that we get the easement in place, it's important that we go out to bid, and it's also important that we do that work this spring and get it done and over with. It's only about a 60-day project in the field, but I'd like to have that done before June or July, so we can close the project out before the October 15th, 2026 date. Middle Fork Auto Ground Booster Station line replacement. Again, we talked about that. We have an agreement, the letter from AML. This coming week, I'll get the revised spec book, get through it. It's about 586 pages to get through. It should read right, but if not, I'll mark it up, get it back. But we've got to have that project finished by December 31st, 2026. Now, I already know that's not going to happen. I mean, there's no way. So I've already asked AML, the funding entity, to take a look at that and take a look at a POP extension, and so they recognize that the project won't finish in that timeline. The project is still not fully designed either. I'm still waiting on the electrical and SCADA drawings, so I can take a look at that before that project goes out for bid, and I expect to get that any time now to look at that. And these are all the turkey tank rehab, the Middle Fork Auto Ground, those are all Bell Engineering projects. The lead service line inventory, we've already satisfied the Commonwealth requirement for this year already, and now we're just waiting on the Commonwealth to come back and tell us what next steps are, right? I fully expect them to come back and ask us to go out and identify. We have approximately, off the top of my head, 700 locations that are unknown. That would be the next step, is identify those unknowns. But again, we gotta wait for the Commonwealth to tell us that next step. Cold water line improvement project. That project is we will score the engineer of record tonight, and this board will vote on who the EOR is going to be. Then I've got some work to do to get that information back to Big Sandy Ad, who's the administrator of that project. That's a HUD-funded project, and there is no POP, to my knowledge, on that project. Route 40 East Water Improvement Project. That's also a Bell Engineering EOR project that's AML funded. Right now, I've been through the drawings and spec book. It looks good. AML's going through it now. I think probably by the end of this week, early next week, we'll have everything in place as far as approvals from AML entities to get that out for bid. But that period of performance is June the 30th, 2028, so we have some time. But we were planning to do that work in 2026, just so you know. So that's where we're at on that project. The next project, the water system improvements, the telemetry project, that's 292. The POP on that's December 2nd, 2026. That project is near completion, and we're just waiting on getting some payments issued so that the contractor come out and finish the job, and then that'll be done. The raw water intake project, Bell Engineering is working with Big Sandy Ad to address the electrical and SCADA issues that needs to go out for bid and be corrected. And then once that's corrected, then the contractor, Schumacher, that's doing the mechanicals will come in and finish the mechanicals and do the commissioning. I don't expect the raw water intake project to be done until the earliest, the So let's just all be in prayer and agreement that it happens in April.
Already passed the,
Huh?
already passed the deadline. Period of performance, it doesn't say November this year.
Well, what happened there, the reason why I've got 11/13/2025 is because on that date, Army Corps of Engineers issued a letter to both the district and to Big Sandy Ad telling them that they're withholding all funds until such time that the project has been brought up to spec and design requirements and they've shown progress in completing the project. So, and I frankly understand Army Corps of Engineers' position on that. If I were in their shoes, I would take the same position. They gotta show progress. Now keep in mind, the district is not signatory to any of those contracts. We're a third-party beneficiary, and we have filed a complaint, lawsuit against Big Sandy Ad specific to that project. It's currently set at about roughly $1 million in damage to the district because of that project not being completed. And that's a huge reason why we are currently on the books, negative $450,000 upside down right now on the books because of that right there alone. But so we'll fight that out in court. The emergency backup generator project, we've asked FEMA to extend the period of performance. That period of performance ran out on September 27, 2025. And we've also asked for scope addendum. We've got $1.3 million roughly to put, in the original scope was to put a generator at the raw water intake station, put a generator at 40 East, put a generator at 40 West, booster stations. We went through the design, and basically what the design had was had generator stations sitting on piers that were in caissons that were in the riverbank. And the cost of that was probably about $250,000 off the top of my head to do that work. And it's cheaper to buy property across the road and border the road and put the generator on the other side and take that savings and go and retrofit our other booster stations for emergency generator and have a total generator that we can tow to those stations and use that and still come at budget. So that's what's going on there. But until we get the POP extension on the emergency generators, FEMA has stopped the project until we get the POP extension.
Has there been any communication from them
Yes.
on it since reopening the government?
Yes. They come back and ask for additional information, coordinates, and I know you were on vacation last week, but you got additional information to get to Stacy. Yeah. But yes, there's been communication, they are looking at it. Bottom line is this, if they don't give us the POP extension, then we don't get the grant, and then the $1.3 million we have in the bank will get back to KCO. And you know, I'm praying that don't happen because we really need these emergency generators. So the old Highway 3 water line replacement, that's an AML project. The period of performance is to be determined. AML sent me an MOA, which is a memorandum of agreement. I reviewed it. The scope of work was written for the old scope back in 2018. And it don't align with the current scope. So I sent it back to AML and said I can't sign it because it's the wrong scope. And so they have to revise the scope to reflect what the current work is and the current budget. And so they're doing that. And when they get that back to me, this board's already approved me to sign that MOA, but I can't sign it until the information on it's correct. So that's where we're sitting. As soon as I get that MOA signed, it's right, and I can sign it, I'll send it back. The next step will be is to contract with Fahi, and I'll come before this board with a Fahi contract, it's board permission to sign that. Fahi will be the administrator. Also, this board's already approved Prime AE to be the EOR on that project. So I'll get a subcontract agreement in place, or the PSA, professional service agreement in place with them to make that happen. And then on the master plan, So, you know, as you can see, and then the next project that we got is the Kentucky TC Beauty Water Line relocation. We've been working with Kentucky Transportation to come up with a design. We've got a pretty good design in place. I reviewed it, was that last week or the week before? Can't remember.
Week before, but
Week
they're coming
before.
this week.
They're coming in there to walk it out. That's at intersection 2031 and 40 East. They're gonna realign, take that road back curve out and realign that road, and we've got to move the water line accordingly.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's another project that we've got going on.
You tell about Ryan for the upgrade.
Same cars, man.
As everyone can see, we've got a lot of projects going on right now, but in 2026 we're gonna have a whole lot more, and it's all good because the more projects we have, the more lines we replace, the better infrastructure we have, the lower water loss we have, the less costly it is to operate. And if we can keep our costs down, then that's key in keeping our rates down. They go hand in hand. All right, so that's, I know it's long-winded, they've got a lot of projects going on. And then on the SIP list, capital improvements projects list, I have not changed that since the October 10th update. But just so for the general public, you know, we submitted 6 water projects to the Kentucky Water's application program for 2026 funding. Debt services are number 1. Tank inspections and painting is number 2. Trucks and equipment is number 3. Water system controls and raw water modifications phase 3 is number 4. 292 booster station water line replacements number 5, and then Bella pump station and line replacements number 6. Those 6 applications were sent to the Kentucky Water's program for water, and those 6 projects are in excess of $21 million, roughly. And so, you know, again, just be in prayer and agreement with me that we get those projects. That's critical for our future advancement on the water side. So other old business. AWR provide master meter delivery construction schedule. We already talked about that, so I don't see a need to go over that again. It's just something, Nicole, there's something you need to add.
No, I'll just start working on trying to get that estimate of what we're looking to do after, you know, from what money's being spent.
Yeah, so you come back to the board with a forecast, that this is what we're forecasting we're gonna spend, this is what we're gonna accomplish, and with the remaining monies, this is what we're proposing, and that's in line with the grant. That's the, okay. AWR provide raw water project update, I think we already talked about that, unless you all have something to add. Flood damage infrastructure status, Kentucky Emergency Management Funding update. Board members, we need to consider a motion to approve AWR Colby May to be the agent for information exchange for the district for February 2025 event. As the agent, Colby May will not have the authority to commit the district without board approval, but what this does do is it allows him to sign documents to provide both FEMA and Kentucky Emergency Management with information. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then we've got the same thing, consider motion to approve AWR Colby May to be the agent for information exchange for the district for April 2025 event. As the agent, Colby May will not have the authority to commit to the district without board approval. So,
Make a motion.
have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Okay, so, AWR update the board on insurance claims and where we're at with the board, last board meeting, we approved you to move forward, to stay on budget, but start moving forward with those repairs.
Yeah, Nancy, one here, this time I know we were kind of talking through the entire thing, both water and sewer, got kind of separated out, so we can talk about the water during the
Good.
water
can understand writing a check might take some time, but a denial letter should not take that much time, so please reach out to them.
Okay.
That's ridiculous.
292, we received that payment, we transferred that into the water disaster account.
You said you did or you're going to?
We did transfer that money, but we have not transferred it, the amount that we spent, we've not transferred that to the operations yet.
Okay, so pay me money, 7,000 some, you transfer but not to operations.
Correct. Yeah.
program that we needed.
So probably Adobe Pro, I guess is what you use to press, but anyway, okay, so you're gonna have, I'm assuming you'll have a, Martin County Water District folder and then a Martin County Sanitation District folder, so people go in, they can look at, they wanna look at water information, or they wanna look at sanitation information, and the packets, board packets will go in those folders.
And we were gonna plan to, when we send it out to the newspaper before the board meeting, go ahead and upload it on there before the meeting as well.
Good, I like it, as much as we can do to be 100% transparent, I'm all in favor of not just putting the board packets up, but put our annual budget up there, an annual budget folder. People can go in with their annual budget, they can look at our board packets and see financially how we're doing, see all the MORs, the water data, the sanitation data, they can look at everything. That's a great thing. Nobody's that, so let's try to, before our next regular board meeting, let's see if we can't have that completed so that we can get that off our list.
Yeah.
And then the next step, going on the, Kurt, not to put you on the spot, but the next step would be to QA that and see if it met all the criteria, because I know you and Nina and Madison, helped out with that, and, it's always one thing to do things to make improvements, but it's another thing to go back and look at it and say, okay, did we achieve our metrics, or do we need to do more? Right, okay. All right, thank you. EWR update board on easement agreements on file and timeline turnover list to the board attorney to address. So I call around and talk to some other districts, and they don't have the problems we have. They have, all of their ratepayers are on file with these agreements. And when I talk to them about where we are, they, were in disbelief, right? Just like I was in disbelief. And so, Dustin, one of the things that, I think we're gonna need before this board can ever talk about it intelligently, is we need to know, what does Kentucky statute allow for when there's two things, when there's infrastructure on private property, infrastructure owned by the district that's on private property, and there's no easement agreement in place, what rights does the district have? I think I know the answer to that, but I'd rather come from our board attorney. And then the other question is when we don't have, infrastructure on private property, but there's a service line that comes off our infrastructure into the private property, and there's an issue with that, and the property owner is not addressing it. Now, again, I think I know what the statute says on that, but we run into that situation in operations, and as a utility, and as a utility operator, EWR, need to know what they can and can't do. And I've already looked at this, there's certain protocols that you have to follow in these scenarios. But I'd like for Dustin to come back to this board and advise us. And then the last thing, Dustin, is for all of those entities that have service, or ratepayers, let's say entities, ratepayers that have service where we don't have an easement agreement on file, what recommendations do you make to this board, legal recommendations do you make to this board to address that? That's not a problem moving forward for new service, but because it's in the tariffs, it's a requirement, you can't get new service without. But it's a problem for those that have service that don't so that we can do applications, and get those grants so that we can afford to fix our infrastructure. That's what they do. What this document does is we enter into a contract with them for January, February, and March. There's 3 months. It costs $1,500 a month. And they go out and look for grant funding for 4 projects of our choosing. I don't see how we administer grants and go out and get grant money without a company like Lockheed. I mean, I just don't know how you do it. And I'm certainly not going to rely on Big Sandy App to do it for us. And I'm speaking my opinion, but that's Tim's opinion. But with that said, is there any questions on that, TA?
Following the 3 months.
That's a good question. They don't want to, commit past that, and for the very reason, we don't know what's going to come out of Kentucky Deadwood Waters. And if we get all 6 water projects, 2 or 1's debt service, that's an easy one, that'll be done over in a couple months. The next, one of them is trucks and equipment, that's quick, that's a couple months. But the other 4 are big, are pretty good sized projects, so it's gonna tie up the district and tie them up. So they're wanting to see what happens there, but also they don't want us to bite off more than we can chew. And one of the things is, this is really good advice, and this is what they said to me, and I didn't like to hear it per se, but it's the truth. And the truth is, as a district, we have to demonstrate that not only can we get grant money, but we can finish projects. And we have to demonstrate that outside of other entities, right? And so I understand that, but I'm 100% confident that every dollar comes into this district in grants get it going. All right. Consider a motion to approve PSE revenue sufficiency report and chairman sign for submittal. Board members, that went out to you, Eric, I believe you sent it out to the board members for review. Was there any comments on that or any concerns, board members, on the language of that document? No. Okay, so the public knows what that document said. Each year we're required, PSE requires districts to submit their financial evaluation. And what the evaluation basically says is that based on our financials, we're underrunning our revenue by 37.3%. And we're telling PSE in our letter that we don't need a rate increase because of the things that we're doing. And I just off the top of my head, with the meter change offs, additional revenue, with joint operating agreement with PCUC and the additional funds that we're getting there, finishing up the raw water intake project and eliminating that heavy cost on the district, to name a few, reducing our water loss from 71 down to 50%. As another item. And so there's a myriad of things that we're doing to reduce our overall cost, not to mention the fact that we do have a lawsuit against Big Sandy Ad, for which we plan to be made whole. Now, we can't tell PSC that because it's a lawsuit. No one can know the outcome of that. But that's our plan, to be made whole. And not to mention the fact that we have there's one entity under the Kentucky Waters program. There's one application that scored higher than us on water, and then our 6 projects are next. So we, and I don't think your letter did touch on Kentucky Waters. It didn't. Well, we get the Kentucky Waters debt service, then there's $3.4 million that goes directly to debt service and wipes that debt out, which includes AWR's invoices. And so I can think of a whole myriad of reasons why PSC should just leave rates alone for now and let the dust settle. And so with that, board members, I'd like to do this. I'd like to have a motion for me to sign that, but I'd like language added about Kentucky Waters debt service, because I think that's important. You know, we've got the highest scores in the state outside of one application, and debt service is our #1 project underwater. I think that should carry some weight. So board members, if we modify the letter to add that language, will you approve me to sign that? So because we're trying to wait to spend that by 31st of December.
Correct. I will say that I'm not sure there's anything that needs to be signed. I think it just needs to be submitted.
Okay. All right. I was understanding how to sign it. Okay. That's fine. If I'm signed, that's good. So can we motion to approve as amended, as stated, to be amended?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Consider a motion to approve Alliance Water Resource insurance coverage for 2026 calendar year for infrastructure and vehicles. As everyone knows, there was a valiant effort trying to get insurance companies to work with us and give us a proposal. I'm somewhat speechless in that we couldn't get someone to commit. But we've got, if we get this done, we've got 10 months to try to figure it out. So with that, can I have a motion to approve insurance coverage for 2026?
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right. Next item on new business is to discuss increased spending. Now, there's no doubt that we have increased our spending. You know, I'll be the first to tell you we have. Now, when you look at the financial
P&L.
Yeah, we're a nonprofit, quasi-government entity, till expenses are down, that's right, even though they're being.
Revenue's up.
Revenue's up, expenses are down.
Revenue's up, what? About,
About 40,000 roughly. Oh, from the prior year.
yeah, what's the prior year?
Prior year, I'm just talking budget. Okay, from the prior year, it's up,
About 170 and 180, so what is that, about $350,000?
yeah, 353,000. Revenues are up from the prior year.
The revenue's up 350, expenses are down 170.
Correct.
What is that net, about 550, $500,000?
Yeah, we're going in the right direction, but I've got this on the, and I think it's important that we talk about this. You know, there are concerns by folks, you know, on this board and out in the community that we need to be cognizant of increased spending. And I think we need to be cognizant of revenue and spending. That's why we work so hard to keep rates, leave rates alone, but increase revenue. And so, you know, and we've done a good job of that. We've also done a good job of keeping our costs down, as Vernon has articulated. But one of the things that troubles me is when I look at how we're managing money as far as the district. What I have trouble with is as a board, we approve to pay bills. But I don't know, based on what we're approving, what's forecasted in those accounts, what do we have in those accounts, what's coming out of those accounts, how much do we have remaining, what do we approve to be paid, is there money there to pay it? Those are the things I don't know, so I can't glean it from these documents. And so what I'd like to ask this board to consider is a motion to first, let's just have what I'll call a workshop. And a workshop is where two board members sit down with AWR and go through the financials and how it's being reported. And what can we do to give us the information, additional information that we'd be looking for so that we can articulate that and be able to speak to it. But not only that, be able to forecast where we're going. Because the part that I'm struggling with is okay, who decides who gets paid today? And who decides what metrics is being used to pay one entity versus another? You know, and I know EWR is doing that, and I know the process you're going through, you're saying, well, we gotta pay to keep the lights on, we gotta pay to keep the chemicals coming in, we gotta pay to keep the parts coming in to fix stuff, I get all that. But I think there needs to be, board involvement in that process. And I think there can be some simple, better term guidance that drives that. So, you know, Colby, not to put you on the spot, you're our treasurer, I think you should lead this effort, you know, this, I'll call it a shop, workshop. And also it needs to be one other board member. It can be me, it don't have to be me, it could be another board member. But it needs to be.
Why is everybody looking down this way?
Well, you love numbers.
Oh, yeah, I do.
So, you know, I mean,
Well,
that's
it needs to be somebody.
obviously, I'm not a numbers guy.
It needs to be somebody that knows numbers, knows business, and knows
Right.
balance sheets.
Mm.
That's what it needs to be, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody on the board right now.
I think just my goal would be to try to make these financial statements a little more digestible for the general public.
Yes.
Because I don't think the general public has any kind of understanding of, you know, what this balance sheet really tells us each month. And when you see something like, I don't know, what is it, the accumulated depreciation of $20 million, you know, what does that tell the average person? And so I think that the most meaningful information, I alluded to it earlier, would be to see a breakdown of each of the accounts that we have, all of these checking accounts. It doesn't have to be the statement for that account, but just a simple, put it in an Excel spreadsheet and have our beginning monthly balance, the expenditures that we're going to be approving in that month, and what the ending balance is
How
going
much
to
you
be.
take in and how much you pay
From
out.
each
and
of
what you
those
pay
different
back.
accounts, because we just see a list of bills to approve from operations, and it's kind of broken down
for reporting, reconciliation purposes, it has its own account.
Well, I can understand, so that's people who pay their bills online.
Online, over the phone,
Yeah.
yes.
I get that, but what I don't know is, and I don't see, I see money being transferred, but I don't know where it's going. I don't know it's going to, it's going to operation account, okay, it's going to here, but I don't see that.
Right. It goes to water operations only.
Right, so, and that was one example, I had, a lot of these I know what they are, but when I go to Rock House Project, I have no clue what that is. These other ones, I know what they are.
It's on 485.
485.
485.
Right. And so like for all of those restricted cash accounts, we see that there were payments made. You know, the Rock House project shows a $10,000, $476,000 payment. Do we
And
put
that's-
that on our list of bills?
You do, it's listed under there with the DSOs, you have the KIA, the Rock House, I'm pretty sure is the same as Regions, the 10-8. It's on the month of the list of bills every month.
And then the $238,731 one for Route 40 East, is that approved there? Operations list of bills as well.
What is that?
That was the one for
Route 40 East Water Improvement Project? Yeah.
That is not actually a payment, that is a transfer, because all the funding that we received, instead of going directly into our operations account, it hit the Route 40 East account, which it was not supposed to do.
That's right, yeah, that's.
And that was part of the board minutes.
But to a bigger point you're trying to make, what to me is, I just need to understand, like what you're saying, I need to know, here's the account, here's the balance, here's what we're gonna pay out of that account, and here's gonna be the ending balance when we do. That would help me.
Well, and so we have that, I think it could be expanded upon, but, I think we have that generally on 484, we have our end of month balance, and we have the cash collected to date, and then we have bill submitted showing the available balance is negative.
But I don't know which accounts these bills were paid out of, right?
Right, it just says
So
operations.
the operations.
Operations account, so there's only one operations account,
One for water, one for sewer.
one for water, one for sewer. And so,
Everything else is like funding or loan payments, things like that.
everything else is restricted.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But I do hear you, and I agree, I think this could be more clear, and I think the workshop's a good idea.
I think so, because we can get it in a format because the part that bothers me is where the board approves to pay bills every month, but then you all go back and huddle to figure out what you're gonna pay and what you're not. I like to know when we approve bills, what are we paying and what are we not? You know, what is that coming out of, what account is that coming out of, and what is that gonna do to the cost account? I don't ever wanna see an account where it's negative. That means that we're approving and paying bills that we don't have the money to pay, which means we shouldn't be approving it to begin with. Right?
Which is what happened now.
Yes.
And if we had some kind of guiding document that the board had approved to say, you know, we want to pay the electric bills first, and then we start paying some of, operations side. At least you guys have a backup to say, oh, we didn't just choose it independently.
The board just gives us this guidance, and this is what we're following.
So we have an internal policy, but we could bring that to you all for your approval.
Right.
Yes.
Or your modifications to it.
Right, that'd be
That
perfect.
should be part of the workshop.
so my response back to that statement, and now I'm talking to myself, aren't I? So my response back to that would be is, then what FEMA monies do we have coming in that we could apply to this to pay the bills? Because we've already spent money to cover the FEMA. So, you
No
know,
more operations camp, we are gonna pay.
yeah, but
We're
whatever.
having FEMA, and then it's actually, will it have to hit that restricted account and then be transferred to operations account? Or,
I don't consider FEMA Plan B repayment money restricted. It should go directly into the operations account.
okay, it goes straight into the operations account. How much of that money do we have coming? Do we know? Do we have a total?
I'll have to, yeah, we can go over it when we go over the sewer, but that's all on this.
I'm just asking on water. Water right now, we only got $7,432. We're still $37,000 short.
Yeah, I'll have to,
But the old Highway 3, we spent $45,000 that for the April.
every bit of that, the 65 there, as soon as I get it submitted, we get payment, every bit of that can go directly as soon as we get it in the operation on the water.
So in your meeting tomorrow with FEMA Kentucky Emergency Management, you need to be pushing so we can get that money.
And maybe another question, because that clears up this stuff too. So this treasury report on 4A4 talks about cash receipts collected today in December. What was the date this report was generated?
This is November 30th.
So that doesn't take into account the bills that went out on the 1st of December that we paid today in this month.
Correct.
So that balance of, you know, whatever, 91,000 that was collected today could be twice as high potentially, because we collect, you know, everyone's bills due on the 20th, 21st of the month.
Right. And so I mean, this always is, this is a snapshot in time.
Right.
Right.
And even if it shows negative, that doesn't mean we can't pay those next week.
Exactly, because you're collecting.
Right.
I understand that, but I'd like to get in an operating principle where we don't have available balances in the negative at all.
Right, and so maybe an adjustment to this form could be, you know, forecasted revenue for December based on previous year's collections or something like that. So that we don't see a negative balance when I'm approving $200,000 for the bill. So you look at maybe December 24's accounts collected, money that people, customers pay in December last year, and that helps us at least forecast what our anticipated revenue is for December. And then we approve our bills based on cash collected today and the potential additional revenue. Because it doesn't look right when I feel like I'm approving $244,000 for a bill and only got $91,000 on it to pay.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. So, back to workshop. Toby Kirk is gonna lead it as treasurer, and so I'm looking for a volunteer to join. It can't be, I'd like to see
Got his
him.
hand up.
Where's got his hand up? Vernon. I'm telling you, brother,
Hey, Greg.
I love him. He's humble, and he doesn't like, his man a few words.
He's got you right down there.
voluntold, I don't think.
Voluntold. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so Vernon, you and Colby Kirk, get together, figure out when would be a good time, what's your WR, and work that out, and then, I'd be interested in knowing the byproduct of that meeting, you know, and just send the board members an update, okay, we had the meeting, this is what we discussed, and this is the outcome of that meeting, and this is the action items that's gonna come out of that kind of thing. So we know, path forward, perfect. All right, good discussion. Moving on, other new business,
Sorry, you said consider a motion, but we didn't get a vote.
I'll consider a motion, for the workshop. Okay, board members, do we have a motion for the
So
workshop?
moved.
Have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping me lined out.
That was good about that.
Consider a motion to request changing the Route 40 East Improvement Project and the old Route 3 Water Line Rehab Project to non-interest bearing accounts. And by the way, that's an AML rule. And for First State Bank to remove the interest amounts of 82 cents and $7.15 from the Route 40 East Improvement Project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So let me ask you one question though, what safeguards have we put in place so this doesn't happen again? Because that's, we've gotta have safeguards in place so that when we go to open an account, we know what the criteria is to open that account, and we follow that criteria, right? It'll just be more professional now. I don't have to deal with any of that, I'll deal with this such. Okay, perfect. All right, moving on. Consider a motion to convene into closed executive session, and in this session, we would talk about the raw water case status. We will discuss a water theft case, and we'll discuss, the AWR contract. Do I have a motion?
Before we do,
Yeah.
if Madison has something for 5 minutes, should we let her do
Yeah.
that? Go back there.
Sure.
You got anything for us?
Trying to think of all the things that I've been doing a lot of different community events lately, especially around water. I recently had a community meeting with Martin County Concerned Citizens, Appalachian Citizens Law Center, and the work that I get to do with Like and Knowledge about really focusing in on with some of the water work that we've been able to do with the water pressure project. Was able to kind of show off a little bit of the toolkit, was able to talk about some of the listening that we've been able to do with different levels of experts when it comes to understanding Martin County's water story. And I actually am waiting to get you all a report regarding our final findings. The presentation was parts of the report, and so the goal is to share this report fluidly throughout the whole county when it comes to the work that we've done in Martin and Harlan County. And some of the, what we like to call leverage points of how we can work together as a community when it comes to thinking about our system at large. And some of the things that have been shared in this space today, I really feel like it's really touching on like what Colby was mentioning about like transparency and education around like how the budgeting is broke down, so community members can understand like what these kind of things mean. And so that's like one example of like leverage points around the work that's been done with the water pressure project to really try to build, you know, the community to come together to really, you know, think about our system at large and how we can move together as a community when thinking about our water and wastewater systems. And so, more soon on that. And the toolkit itself, it is so close. I've been literally scrambling the past week getting this thing up and going. There's a couple things that we're still working on. The funding section in particular is one section that is what we like to call a little beast when it comes to all the different layers of understanding funding, which we've talked about a lot today in this space. And so that is something that we're still workshopping internally with our team at Lycan, but the rest of the modules are going to be up and live by the end of the year. And so I know I've been, I mentioned I was sending an email regarding the toolkits and the feedback, and I've been, if you just knew the different meetings I'm part of outside of water, it's a lot. But I do want to follow up and send that email before the end of the year, just so y'all can have some time before the next board meeting to look over this toolkit and to give any feedback, suggestions when it comes to advancing this toolkit. I know I've already got some feedback from some board members, and I really appreciate that. And we've already applied those feedbacks into our modules and into the toolkit. And one of the things that I wanted to bring to the board to consider is potentially linking the toolkit into the website. And so that was something I wanted to bring to you all as a thought to consider.
Yeah.
And especially with the lineups of like the advancements that we're doing on the website with the board packets, really coincide with like the water zone fact sheets when it comes to helping residents understand what projects are being done and where it's being done in the community. So it kind of corresponds with the
So
work.
Madison, when you get the toolkit ready, can you send a link to the board members so we can go and evaluate it?
Yes, it's been like in a preliminary like push phase, like we want people to review it and then we take feedback and do it again. We had a soft launch with the community meeting on December 9th, but I will send you something out before the end of the year so you can take more time to foster and look into it, because this toolkit's for the community, it's not for me.
You have everybody's email address?
Yes, I do.
I'd really like for the board members to play with it, look at it, digest it, and then the board can consider a motion to link it to our website.
Yeah. The only thing that is not accurate on the site at this time is the water loss count, and that is something that I've been working really closely with Colby a little bit when it comes to updating the numbers and that I had from 2023 to where they stand today, to really show the impact of change of water loss decreasing from the system.
Yeah.
So it's the only thing that's not concrete yet.
And the toolkit is a byproduct of Dr. Orsby's workshop
byproduct of 4 years of working here in Martin County, doing deep listening sessions, hosting community meetings, talking with water operators internally here in the community, externally and outside communities throughout Appalachia. 20 plus archives of research and literature and newspaper stories about the story of water here. It is layers and layers of just connecting with the community about the water story in today's time and how we want to see the water story in the future.
Yep.
So,
And
it's,
I'm also anxious to hear from you on complaints.
compliance?
Complaints. Yes, because you hosted a meeting not too long ago to so that folks would just come in and they could just tell you what their concerns are and
Yeah, that was
what the issues
December
are.
9th. Yeah, that was December 9th meeting. Yeah, I have a very light write-up that I'm working on right now based on the audience that was there of different concerns that they are seeing from a residential lens. And what I'm hoping to do is apply that into action steps of what concerned citizens in Lakeland can do moving forward when it comes to the residents' questions around water in general.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Well, I attended that meeting, my takeaway from the number one complaint was affordability.
Affordability
Yes.
on both the infrastructure and residential level, and the way
Yes,
those worlds
you
work.
know, it's one of the things I struggle with when it comes to affordability. Anytime that you look at a business plan, you sit down and you first figure out, well, okay, for me to have this business, what's it gonna cost to have the business? Then the next thing you figure out from a geographic perspective is can I generate enough revenue to operate the business? Well, and I'm not pointing fingers and I'm not, bad-mouthing anyone, but the reality is this. The reality is I don't think anybody sat down and figured up what it was gonna cost to have a sanitation plan and how many customers the sanitation plant had to have for the sanitation plant to operate. No one ever did that. What I think they did was they said, we need a sanitation plant, we got money, let's build one, and then let's start running lines to people. That's what they did. But the reality is well, when you have a sanitation system that we're spending $1 million a year on and we're not even maintaining it, but we're spending $1 million and we got 850 customers, that math doesn't work. You need to have more customers. Well, we're not gonna see a population big increase in Martin County when it comes to sanitation. It's not gonna happen. So how do you increase revenue? Well, what you have to do is get grant money, improve your plants so they'll meet their discharge standards. I'm talking about the INS plant, for which we're doing. And then, once you do that, then you bring in other entities like commercial, industrial, that they can discharge to that plant. They pick up a cost of that operation, and that helps offset the cost that people pay as a solution. That's one solution. On the water side, it's a little bit more simplistic. On the water side, same thing happened though. They said, hey, we need a water plant. We need to get water out to everybody. But on the water side, we got 3,400 customers roughly, and we generate about $3 million, $3.3 million a year, and it takes every penny of that just to operate and maintain, but no capital projects. And so once again, how do you solve that problem? Well, what we've done, we've decreased our water loss rate, and we've also decreased our operating cost, as we talked about tonight, and by doing that, we've also increased how much water we're wholesaling and the monies we're taking in through that wholesale process. And also what I want to do is I want to look at how we can wholesale more water, in other words, regionalize and get more water out to other entities so we can generate more revenue. Generating more revenue decreases the operating cost on the individual. And also what it does, it allows you to maintain what you have. But back to what I was originally saying, before someone made the decision to go about this, they didn't go about it the right way. They first should have said, what's it going to cost to do this? What's it going to cost to operate? And do we have enough people to do it? That's what should have happened. That didn't happen. So here we are.
Done by government think that way.
But we're working to fix all that. But, that's why there's a